morning. Good morning. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. My name is Deirdre Yates. I'm the Dean of the College of Communication and the Arts. And it's my honor to welcome you to the second event this year, our second year, sponsored by the Institute for Communication and Religion, housed in the College of Communication and the Arts. I just wanted to say that this institute was founded and funded by the Thrust Initiative from the Office of the Provost and housed in our college, the College of Communication and the Arts. And the institute is an interdisciplinary effort between faculty and administration from the College of Communication and the Arts, from the Immaculate Conception Seminary School of Theology, from the Department of Religion and Catholic Studies program within the College of Arts and Sciences. And I think it's important just to give a little context and framework to how the Institute is functioning. The purpose and the contribution of the Institute is carrying forth in the spirit of Second Vatican Council's decree on the media of social communication, uncovering new avenues of communicating within society as a whole. And our mission is to enhance the universities and the colleges' sustained leadership in fostering open, clear communication between the church and the broader public, along with fostering the tradition of ongoing commitment to ecumenical and interreligious dialogue. And some of the intentions of the Institute are to enter into our country's public dialogue and debate, to promote scholarly inquiry, to engage the colleges and the university's students throughout all their major programs, to encourage other academic disciplines within the university as integral partners. I'm delighted to have this program today. I want to give a special thanks to the steering committee that created this and brought this all together, to the director of the Institute, Dr. Radwin, for his arrangement and work on bringing this together. And our program today, I truly believe, is a wonderful conglomeration and convergence and example of our Institute's mission and the Institute's intentions. So I'm delighted to have our guest today, who I'm very grateful is here, and I welcome all of you. Thank you for coming and enjoy the program. I give you Dr. Radwin, the director of the Institute for Communication.
Okay, thank you, Dean Yates. I'm going to give just a brief introduction to our program for today. So the title of our event is Religious Harmony, Community, Communication, and Collaboration. And Dean Yates thanks the steering committee, and especially Dr. Mirzaku, who came up with community, communication, and collaboration. So our mission, as Dean Yates told you, is tied to Vatican Council II, and our inspiration document is Nostra Aetate. And so to start our mission statement, at the top of our mission document, is a quote from section 2. Through dialogue and collaboration with the followers of other religions, carried out with prudence and love, and in witness to the Christian faith and life, we recognize, preserve, and promote the good things, spiritual and moral, as well as the socio-cultural values found among these people. And so today's event is a great opportunity to do just that. For our opening, I'll introduce Dr. Thurmond, and she will introduce 5 musical performers, one from each of the traditions in Nostra Aetate. So Hinduism will be first, followed by Buddhism, and then Islam, Judaism, and Christianity. After those 5 opening prayers, we'll hear from our guest, Swami Sarvapriyananda, the minister for the New York Vedanta Society. Next, we'll hear from our own Rabbi Brill from the Department of Religion here at Seton Hall, and he will offer his talk as a reflection. And then we'll finish up with some question and answers and some offer of gratitude. So with that said, I will turn it over to Dr. Thurmond. Dr. Thurmond has a really beautiful bio to introduce her. She says, music has long been recognized as a universal language. Singing, the beginnings of which are the sustained, natural vocal utterances of a cry, a sigh, a shout, or a chant, is the primordial expression of the language of music. Based upon this understanding, it is my belief that the capacity to sing resides innately at the core of our humanity. The call of our human nature to express song, however, is not our gift exclusively. In Psalm 98, the ancient biblical psalmist extends the invitation to sing a new song, not just to the human community, but to all the earth. Let the sea roar and all that fills it. Let the floods clap their hands. Let the hills sing together for joy at the presence of the Lord. The vision that's lifted up through the new song would bring all of creation together into one voice that expresses unity among the diverse communities of creation and praise to the Creator. Please welcome Dr. Gloria Thurman.
Good morning, and may I also extend a welcome to you to this, I'm sure, one of the first of its kind programs at Seton Hall University, but certainly, hopefully, it will not be the last. I too would like to begin with a quote from Nostra Aetate. In our time, when day by day mankind is being drawn closer together and the ties between different peoples are becoming stronger, the Church examines more closely her relationship to non-Christian religions. In her task of promoting unity and love among men, indeed among nations, she considers above all this declaration what men have in common and what draws them in fellowship. That excerpt from Nostra Aetate, one of the first documents published by the Second Vatican Council, and required reading for our University Core 1 Journey of Transformation classes, speaks further of the ultimate mystery that embraces our entire existence, from which, as a human community, we take our origin and towards which we tend. That's in the first paragraph of Nostra Aetate. Experience has demonstrated that the devotional music of all religious communities provide a doorway through which adherents may encounter the universality of that ultimate mystery to which the document alludes. By experiencing the various devotional music of the global religious communities, namely those of Hinduism, Buddhism, Islam, Judaism, and Christianity, we encounter the cultural differences along with the historical factors that shape the religious expression. But we also encounter the similarities that reflect our need for a unified community, our search for truth, and our longing for a relationship with the transcendent. The global perspective of historians of religions today is that religion is much more than stated doctrine and belief, since it is woven throughout the fabric of all cultures and societies. Accordingly, religious music often unveils the core or mystery of a faith tradition in ways that elude theology, philosophy, linguistics, historiography, literary criticism, or even the social sciences. The implication is that the holy or the sacred, as a category of practical human experience, does not exist in a vacuum, nor solely in the intellect or merely in silence, but as consistently bound up with the vocal and musical expression. Thus, the overall importance of chant, tonal recitation, and the sacred songs for the study of religion can be seen as inestimable. There is virtually no religious tradition in the course of history that has not given primacy to oral articulation and transmission through sacred chant or devotional song. Through sacred sound and devotional song, the transcendent becomes eminent and dwells among us. This morning, because our performers are going to be offering praise and prayers through wonderful performance and really beautiful voices, but we ask that you do not applaud because it truly is not a performance for us. They are actually leading us in devotional song, praise, chant, recitation, in prayer on behalf of their particular religious expression. So we respect that and take it into our hearts, and our hands will be silent. Our first offering will come from Ishani Sanyal. Ishani is 19 years old and is currently a sophomore at Seton Hall University, working towards her major in psychology, her minor in international relations and diplomacy, and a certificate in DAVA. She has lived in South Brunswick, New Jersey for her entire life, and she has always had a passion for music, especially for Indian classical music. She first started learning Indian classical music from a school known as an Ishani. You need to help me here. Please say the name of your school.
Bharatiya Kala Kendra.
Thank you. Which is affiliated with an Indian university, when she was about 7 years old. Ishani really thinks that learning Indian classical music is a way for her to know more about her Indian heritage, and that it helps her to stay rooted in the Indian culture. Along with the Indian classical music, she has continually participated in choir throughout her school years and has acquired a deep interest in Western classical music. One of her main goals in life is to create a fusion between Western classical and Indian classical music. Please let us welcome the offering of Ishani as she sings for us or performs for us a Krishna bhajan.
Ma
Carmen Yap is graduating in fall 2019 with a BA in Finance and a minor in Asian Studies. She is the founder of the Seton Hall Financial Planning Association, the Media Production Chair of the Student Advisory Board, and is part of the Seton Hall Servant Leadership Program. She recently facilitated sections on diversity and inclusion to freshmen, helping them to understand the importance of engaging in different perspectives and hearing each other's stories. Leading us in the Buddhist devotional chant, Heart Sutra, is Carmen Yap. Please welcome her.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very honored to be here today, and I will be presenting you the Heart Sutra, one of the important texts in Buddhism. The Heart of Prajna Paramita Sutra. When Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva was practicing the profound Prajna Paramita, he illuminated the 5 skandhas and saw that they are all empty, and he crossed beyond all suffering and difficulty. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness. Emptiness does not differ from form. Form itself is emptiness. Emptiness itself is form. So too are feeling, condition, formation, and consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are empty of characteristics. They are not produced, not destroyed, not defiled, not pure, and they neither increase nor diminish. Therefore, in emptiness there is no form, feeling, condition, formation, or consciousness. No eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, or mind. No sights, sounds, smells, tastes, objects of touch, or dharmas. No field of the eyes up to and including no field of mind consciousness, and no ignorance or ending of ignorance, up to and including no old age and death, or ending of old age and death. There is no suffering, no accumulating, no extinction, no way, and no understanding and no attaining. Because nothing is attained, the Bodhisattva, through reliance on Prajna Paramita, is unimpeded in his mind. Because there is no impediment, he is not afraid, and he leaves distorted dream thinking far behind, ultimately Nirvana. All Buddhas of the 3 periods of time attain Arya Samya Samya Sambuddhi through reliance on Prajna Paramita. Therefore know that Prajna Paramita is a great spiritual mantra, a great bright mantra, a supreme mantra, an unequal mantra. It can remove all suffering, it is genuine and not false. That is why the mantra of Prajna Paramita was spoken, recited like this: Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisattva. Thank you.
Thank you, Carmen. Mohammed El Sheikh is a junior at Seton Hall University studying international relations and diplomacy, as well as religious studies. He is vice president of the Muslim Student Association and also part of an off-campus organization called the Muslim Network. He works as assistant director of services. He will recite to us from the Quran. Please welcome Mohammed El Sheikh.
Hello everyone. I'm very honored to be reciting Quran at this event. And first I'll recite to you Quran from the opening verse of the Quran, Surah Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين وآتينا موسى الكتاب وقفينا من بعده ورسل وآتينا عيسى ابن مريم البينات وأيدناه بروح القدس. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا. صدق الله العظيم. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed. Dr. Angela Weisel and Freddie Brooks are celebrating 30 years of friendship in 2019. In addition, Dr. Weisel is professor and chair of the English department at Seton Hall, and Freddie Brooks was an engineer with Bell Labs, Lucent Alcatel, Nokia for 38 years. She is also a singer in and a board member of the Zamir Chorale. This morning, Dr. Weisel and Mrs. Brooks are going to present to us Hebrew chant. Please welcome them.
And this is a song for peace. The transliteration is in your program, and we're hoping maybe you'll join us on the chorus a little bit. And we'll end with a blessing, the final blessing that we're going to say today. Thanks God for blessing the people and bringing us to this moment. You say it for a new moment, and since we're all here together doing this beautiful thing, it seemed appropriate.
Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rahav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adom lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom rahav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rahav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. V'tov b'necha levarech et amcha Yisrael v'chol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom rahav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom rahav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Tasim leolam. Baruch atah Adonai Malekeh Amo Yisrael b'shalom. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehechianu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
Thank you, Dr. Weisel and Ms. Brooks. Thank you. Lastly, but never least, Josette Diaz is a junior social and behavioral science major with a concentration in allied health. As a singer-songwriter, Josette became well known for extraordinary accomplishments on NBC's The Voice, where as a high school student, she dove into the often misunderstood world of television production. Working with highly respected artists such as Joan Jett, Tim McGraw, Faith Hill, and her coach Miley Cyrus further underlined the importance of music in this young artist's life. She has performed on stages such as the Apollo Theater, Billboard, The Bitter End, the Metropolitan Club, Symphony Space, Sidewalk, and many more. Please welcome Josette Diaz as she she will sing for us, but leading us in prayer through a beautiful Christian devotional song.
Perfect. So I will be singing a contemporary Christian song. It's called In Christ Alone. It's pretty popular, so if you guys know it, I would love for you to sing along as well. And I hope you guys enjoy it. In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this solid ground, firm through the fierce drought and storm. What heights of love, what depths of peace, when fears are still, when striving cease. My comforter, my all and all, here in the love of Christ I stand. In Christ alone. In Christ alone. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain. And as he stands in victory, sin curse has let his grip on me. And as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost his grip on me. For I am his and he is mine, bought with the precious love of Christ. In Christ alone. In Christ alone. No guilt in life, no fear of death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from
Thank you very much, Josette. And I want to thank all of our performers this morning for allowing our faces to be kissed by God and for allowing us to kiss God through the devotionals. At this particular point, I would like to turn the program over to Dr. Radama.
Thank you, Dr. Thurman. Can we please applaud for all of them now we're going to play? It's my privilege now to introduce our featured speaker. I first met Swami Sarvapriyananda when Professor Amar invited me to present at the Academy of Management out in California in 2016. And it was really an amazing event, really one of the most distinguished panels I've ever been on, and I hope to maybe do one again someday. Swami Sarvapriyananda has been appointed minister and spiritual leader of the Vedanta Society, and he's been working there since 2017, January 6, 2017. Prior to this, he served as assistant minister of the Vedanta Society of Southern California, starting in 2015. The Swami joined the Ramakrishna Math and Mission in 1994 and received sannyas in 2004. Before being posted to the VSSC's Hollywood Temple, Swami served as a teacher of the Monastic Probationers Training Center at Baylor Math. He has served the Ramakrishna Math and Mission in various capacities, including being the vice principal of the Degar Vidyapath Higher Secondary School, principal of the Shri Krishna Mandira Teacher Education College at Baylor Math, and first registrar of the Vivekananda University at Baylor Math. I apologize for mispronouncing half of those words. Can you all please join me in welcoming Swami Sarvapriyananda.
Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityur Ma Amritam Gamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real, lead us from darkness unto light, lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. It's wonderful to be here, and I would like to thank Seton Hall and the Institute of Communications for organizing this beautiful program. I'd like to thank, of course, Dean Yates, who's here, Dr. Radvan, of course, for organizing, putting this together, and inviting me to be here with you this morning. Rabbi Brill, Professor Amar. Is Professor Amar here? Yes, there he is. He was my first contact to Seton Hall. And all the distinguished faculty members, and dear students, and other guests who are present here this morning. Communication is important. My first teacher in communications was Father Frederick D'Souza back in India. We used to call him Father Freddy. And he said to us in our first class on communications, he said, it's all about communication. You're going to learn so many wonderful subjects in college, but as you grow older, go through life, go through your careers, you begin to understand it's all about communication. He said to us that it's great to get an idea, but it's equally important to get that idea from point A to point B, which is communication. He also warned me about time. He said, there's an art of beginning a talk and an art of ending a talk. And my students in the monastery, they tell me that, Swami, you have learned the first one. So I'll rely on Dr. Radvan to yell at me if and when I overstep the time limits. But as we go along, let me talk about the subject at hand, the harmony of religions, a Vedantic standpoint. Now the word Vedantic requires a little bit of explanation. The Vedas are the source texts of Hinduism, and in the Vedas, the most spiritual, the highest teachings are found in texts called the Upanishads. And these Upanishads are regarded as the final teaching of the Vedas, and therefore Vedanta, Anta means the end or the final teachings. But basically I could have just said a Hindu perspective. Harmony of religions, a Hindu perspective is same as a Vedantic perspective. Now, whenever I'm asked to talk about Hinduism, I say to my audiences, often school kids or college audiences like this, that anything that you say about Hinduism, any question you ask about Hinduism, the answer is usually yes and no. Do Hindus believe in God? Yes and no. There are orthodox schools of Hinduism which are non-theistic. I wouldn't say atheistic, but non-theistic, like Sankhya, for example. So is God male? Yes and no. There are huge traditions in Hinduism where God is worshipped as the divine mother. Is God with form? Yes and no. God can be with form and multiple forms, and God is beyond form also, the formless too. So it is enormously diverse. There's a whole range of beliefs, incredibly diverse, incredibly complex. And so if you ask a speaker to talk about Hinduism, depending on which tradition, which part or which sect of Hinduism the speaker is coming from, he or she will give you a different version of Hinduism. If you invited somebody else today, he or she would have said something different. Now, if this is so, if it is so diverse and so complex, and I am just coming from one angle of it, why should you take me seriously? Why should you take whatever I say about Hinduism seriously at all? Well, for a few reasons. The particular the form of Hinduism I come from, Advaita Vedanta, as taught by Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda, would be regarded, you could call it a 19th century reform movement within Hinduism. Why is it important? Well, because it's not just another sect of Hinduism, it became very influential within India today. Lots of Indians, Hindus, would understand Hinduism the way Swami Vivekananda presented it. So that's one reason why we claim to speak for all Hindus, all Hindu sects, which makes us also try our best to be as inclusive and as fair as possible to the various sects of Hinduism. So that's one reason why you should take it seriously as representative of Hinduism. The second reason is, that is our founder, Swami Vivekananda, who came to this country, was the first Hindu teacher in the West. In 1893, in the World Parliament of Religions, Swami Vivekananda represented Hinduism and started the Vedanta societies, which were the first Hindu institutions in the West. The one I come from in New York, the Vedanta Society of New York, was the first among these in 1894, 125 years ago. In fact, Phil Goldberg, in his wonderful book, American Veda, he traces the entire history of Hinduism in the United States. We wouldn't know it, but there are words that's part of American culture. Words like yoga, words like yoga, for example. I went to this school, a Catholic school in California, in Los Angeles. I was talking to the students there, and when I mentioned yoga, one of the students said, "Oh, yoga, you have yoga in India too?" That's how ubiquitous become. I think there are more yoga studios in the United States than there are in India. So yoga, words like karma, words like Yoda, the Star Wars Yoda. So there's a link. I will not talk about it, but if you Google Star Wars and Vedanta, you can find a lot of discussion on how the sources of George Lucas's inspiration go back to Joseph Campbell, who worked on mythology and who was inspired by Swami Nikhilananda, one of our early monks in the United States. So in that way, the form of Hinduism I represent is actually very present and very, very influential in the West too. So what does it say? Note that India, this religious scene in India is enormously complex, rich, and ancient. It is not only the homeland to Hinduism in its multiple forms, but it is the homeland of Buddhism. That's where the Buddha was born and Buddhism was born. It is the birthplace of Jainism, a religion which is sort of elder contemporary of Buddhism. It is the birthplace of Sikhism. So all these traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, are all from India. And at the same time, Christianity came to India just after Christ. So 2,000 years ago, the first Christians, they came to India. And those churches, those lineages are still there in the southern state of Kerala. Islam came to India during the lifetime of the Prophet. So India is really home to a wide range of, almost the entire range of religions of the world. Judaism is very interesting. Swami Vivekananda mentioned in his talk to the World Parliament of Religions that we are proud that we have sheltered in our bosom the remnants of the Israelites who became refugees after the destruction of the temple in 70 AD. So there have been Jews in India for about 2,000 years now. In fact, I was in the Indian consulate in New York, and there was a program on Hanukkah. And the Israeli consul general was there, and he was giving a talk. And he said, I meet the diaspora, the Jewish diaspora from different countries of the world, and they have sorrowful stories of the struggles they have faced in their countries and around the world, except the Jewish diaspora from India, who said that we have never faced any persecution in India for 2,000 years. There's been nothing like anti-Semitism there in India, ever. So India, many religions, an extraordinary diversity. And so I believe it's worthwhile exploring how India has managed its religious diversity. 2,000 years of so many religions interacting with each other, very little, if any, of religious intolerance or violence. How does that work? So I'm going to present to you how it works for Hindus, and I believe there is a message there for the world at large, especially today. It's interesting that Swami Vivekananda gave his first talk in the World Parliament of Religions in 1893 on 11th September. So September 11th, 1893, where he gave a call for religious, he said not religious tolerance, he said I don't believe in tolerance. Tolerance just means that you are wrong and I'm just putting up with you. But religious acceptance, that all the paths are true. So how it works for Hindus and what message it has for the world at large. Now I'm going to share with you 5 points, which I believe is the essence of the Hindu approach to religious harmony. And I will leave it at that, and then we can discuss it. I think it's much more interesting if we have interaction and questions and answers. So here goes. The first point, and most important, we believe, in Hinduism it's believed that there is one ultimate reality, but it is called by different names. In the most ancient of the Hindu texts, there is this idea, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. The truth is one, but the wise speak of it differently. So there is one ultimate reality, but whether it is called Brahman or God or Jehovah or Allah, or indeed the nirvana of the Buddhist. It's very interesting that in Hinduism you encompass both personal and impersonal principles. The personal God of the theistic traditions like Judaism, Christianity or Islam, but also the impersonal nirvana of the Buddhist, where you're not even talking about God at all. So there is one truth, Ekam Sat, truth is one, but the wise speak of it or teach it differently. Robert Wright, who's a confirmed atheist and a staunch neo-Darwinist, he's written books like The Evolution of God, The Moral Animal, and most recently, Why Buddhism is True. It's a bestseller now in Barnes & Noble. And he's here in Princeton. In his book, The Evolution of God, which is about not about the Indian traditions. It's about Christianity, it's about Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, and how those religions have evolved over the centuries. Towards the end of that book, he mentions Hinduism just once at the end of the book. He says, how has India managed its enormous religious diversity? And he mentions this doctrine, the truth is one, but the wise speak of it differently. And he says, I think the prospects for peace among the great religious traditions of the world will lie in adopting some version of this teaching. So here it is, that there is one reality, and for a Hindu at least, when I speak of Brahman, the ultimate reality, when the Jew speaks of Jehovah, or of the Muslim of Allah, or Christianity of our Father in heaven, or even something impersonal like Nirvana, to me, they are all different aspects of one infinite reality. So this is point number one. This is the basis of harmony of religions. Point number two. The purpose of religion, the purpose of human life, in fact, is realization of God. So this is a very important point. What is the point of religions? In fact, the word religion has no direct equivalent in Sanskrit or in Indian languages. The closest we get is a word like dharma. But dharma is a much wider term. Dharma literally means that which holds us together, that which gives an entity its integrity. So substances have properties of dharma. The human beings have dharma. Each of us has his or her own dharma. So dharma is a wider term, but that's the term used in India for religion. Closer term might be sampradaya, which means a religious community or a religious lineage. So the purpose of these religious communities or lineages is God realization, is enlightenment. That is the goal of religion. Swami Vivekananda, and that's the goal of human life. Swami Vivekananda put it so clearly. He said, the goal of life, the purpose of life, is to manifest the divinity already within us. You do it by work or worship, by meditation, or by love, or by one or more of all of these paths, and the goal is to be free. And then he says, books, temples, doctrines, churches are secondary details. So the essence of religion is this enlightenment, God realization, whatever you call it, salvation. So this is the second point. And therefore, the third point follows easily from the second point. If that is the purpose, if there's one ultimate reality, and to realize it, to manifest it in our lives is the ultimate purpose of life, then the third thing follows is, then all the religions of the world, they are all paths, they are all ways to attain this enlightenment. So they are all true. The different paths, the different paths within Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism, they are all paths and they are all equally true. Now when I say equally, we have often been charged with this, you tend to reduce all religions to be like, you're saying they're all the same. We've never said they're all the same. We in fact, Sri Ramakrishna, they would say that they are all unique, they are all different, and they have to be. There is a place for every religion in the economy of God. That you reduce everything to a shapeless lump. But no, each religion is unique. In fact, Hans Kuhn, who is a well-known Catholic theologian, in his classic book on being Christian, he says, the Christian does not claim exclusivity. The Christian just claims uniqueness for Christianity. And that's perfectly fine. Each religion is unique, but each religion is a path. Sri Ramakrishna, who was a teacher of Swami Vivekananda, would say that you can climb up to the top floor of a house. You can take the staircase. Today he would have said you can take the elevator. They didn't have elevators at that time. You can climb up, he says, through the bamboo stairs outside the building. Today he would have said fire escape. Or you can take a rope and indeed climb up on top of the building. But whichever way you do, you climb up to the top of the building, and they're all equally valid paths. When I come from Manhattan to Seton Hall, the Google Drive the Google Maps can give you different approaches, different roads. In fact, Somebody showed that if you have an Android phone and an iPhone, they give you different maps. They have different opinions on everything. So it does not mean one is correct and the other one is wrong. They're both valid because they get you to the same point, to the same realization. Another motive would be we're climbing the same mountain, but by different paths. So different paths up a mountain. I know there has been some pushback on this. One objection is that, no, I heard a theologian saying, no, we are climbing up different mountains. So we can discuss this. Because if you say there are different goals, different mountains, then are you arguing for polytheism? I think that would go right against the monotheistic idea of the great Abrahamic traditions, or indeed the Hindu idea of one ultimate reality. So that is the third point. They are all different paths leading to the same goal. Sri Ramakrishna had very beautiful little stories or little parables. It says the Hindu and the Muslim and the Christian go to the same village pond. You have to create in your mind the rural Bengal scene where there are big ponds in each village and different communities go to the same pond to drink water or bathe. So the Hindu calls the water jal, the Muslim calls it pani, and the Christian calls it water, but they're all referring to the same substance. In the same way, whether you call it God or Brahman or Allah, you're talking about the same reality. So that's the third point. The fourth point is that, so what does that mean? If they all lead to the same reality, do we have to practice all religions? That would be kind of impractical. Somebody actually did that. In a talk in our main monastery, he was in India, a speaker said, and God bless his heart, but he said, I practice Hinduism on Monday and Islam on Tuesday. And he meant it. And I think that would be really a big job, But no, that's not what is meant in Hinduism. What we do in Hinduism is, there is a doctrine of your chosen ideal. Because within Hinduism itself, there is so much diversity. Are you going to worship Shiva and Vishnu and the Divine Mother and all of that together? No. The chosen ideal is what your spiritual master or your family tradition or your local tradition tells you. So a Hindu would typically be a worshipper of Krishna, or like there was a beautiful Krishna bhajan which Ishani sang a little earlier. So the worshipper of God as Krishna, or as Rama, or as Vishnu, or as the Divine Mother. That would be your chosen ideal. So I, as a Hindu, I have a chosen ideal. And so I would concentrate on that. It's important because that gives you the passion and the intensity and the focus. You need to put it in one place. So that is how you could reconcile respect for all religions and yet practice your own. And indeed, you're allowed to say that your own approach is also the best. Somebody asked me, can I say my religion is the best? You can, and you must. If you go into a supermarket and pick out your brand of cereal and say that's the best cereal, you mean that's the best for you. And you can say that, otherwise why would you buy it? So similarly, yes, you are expected to love and revere your own tradition as the best. Then the last point is, what follows from all the four together is that we must love and respect the traditions of all religions, the founders of all religions. Indeed, for me as a Hindu, to criticize or to think of another religion or the founders or the masters of another religion as lower or inferior would be devastating for my own faith as a Hindu. Because what I'm criticizing is the God I am worshipping. It's literally the same. In Hinduism, the idea of God is infinite. So being infinite is capable of infinite expressions, different forms, different mythologies, different philosophies. And all of them are true in essence. Aldous Huxley, he wrote this book, The Perennial Philosophy. So he said that underlying the great religious traditions of the world, there is a highest common factor in fact, there is a Christian theologian, David Bentley Hart. He has written a beautiful book, which is a polemic against the new atheists. The book is called God as Being, Consciousness, Bliss. And in the chapters are Sat, Chit, Ananda, which are the Sanskrit terms for pure being, pure consciousness and pure bliss. And he says in the Hindu tradition of Vedanta, we find this highest common factor of all religions. And his claim is, it's not just limited to Hinduism. This you find as the final position, as the most sophisticated position of all the religions of the world. And in his book he demonstrates God as pure being, as the ground of existence. God as pure awareness, as the light of creation. God as pure value, that means the ultimate purpose, meaning in life, as joy, as bliss, as peace. And so the harmony of religions, the different paths, they are all expressions of the infinitude of God. One thing Sri Ramakrishna, he was enormously accepting, but one thing he could not tolerate was anybody trying to put a limit to God. God is only this and nothing more. That he would find it intolerable. He said, who are you to set a limit to God? He was a Hindu, but everybody knows this story in India, that he practiced other religions too. He practiced Islam as a Muslim, not mixing and matching. When he practiced Islam, he removed all the pictures of Hindu gods and goddesses from his room. And he practiced Islam. He practiced Christianity. He would say, I want to know how the Englishmen worship God. At that time, the British were in Calcutta. So let me see, I want to see how the Englishmen worship God. One of our senior monks said about Sri Ramakrishna, he was a glutton for God. So he wanted to taste God in all these different ways. Doesn't mean that we have to, but it shows that from that perspective, they're all different aspects of one ultimate reality. I think I should stop here. Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. And I do hope you have some good questions coming up after the Rabbi's reflections. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Swami Sarvapriyananda, for the wonderful talk. It's now my privilege to introduce Seton Hall's own Rabbi Allen Brill. And his bio is very long, and he told me to cut the middle parts, so I'll do my best. Dr. Allen Brill is the Cooperman Ross Endowed Chair for Jewish Christian Studies at Seton Hall University, where he teaches Jewish Studies in the Department of Religion, our co-sponsor, and the Jewish Christian Studies graduate program. He specializes in interfaith theology, Jewish mysticism, modern Jewish thought, and contemporary Jewish orthodoxy, and he offers courses in medieval and modern Jewish thought, Jewish mysticism, interfaith encounter, and Jewish theology. He's the author of several books, including Judaism and World Religion, Christianity, Islam, and Eastern Religions, Judaism and Other Religions, Models of Understanding, and Thinking God, the Mysticism of Rabbi Zadok of Lublin. Dr. Brill received his BA, MA, and ordination from Yeshiva University and his PhD from the Department of Theology at Fordham University. In 2014, Dr. Brill won a prestigious Fulbright Senior Scholar Award for research and teaching at Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, Uttar Pradesh, in India. During his award, he taught 2 graduate-level courses in India. Dr. Brill was also awarded a Dorset Visiting Fellowship for 2 extended stays at Yarnton Manor at Oxford University in the UK. Currently, Dr. Brill is working on a monograph comparing Judaism and Hinduism, tentatively titled A Rabbi on the Ganges, A Jewish-Hindu Encounter. Please join me in welcoming Rabbi Allen Brill.
So, as mentioned, I actually taught in India, and I had a classroom of Buddhist and Hindu monks, basically, and for them to talk about Judaism was incredibly exotic. To take a course in Buddhist meditation or Vedanta, oh, that they do for their degree, but to do Judaism, that was incredibly exotic within their background. And a lot of things was explaining basic things that they wouldn't know about Judaism. Don't reduce it to stereotypes, which is one thing we've got to learn about approaching any religion. So I had to repeat multiple times things like, no, Judaism is not still giving the sacrifices of Leviticus. Here I do teach a course Encountering Other Religions, where I actually deal with many of these questions of one or many mountains. What does it mean to have commonality? What does it mean not to have commonality? But the one thing I will stress is if you're comparing, and since we had up many faiths here today, is always to compare like to like. Meaning all of our individual religions are quite diverse, with both rational and mystical, with philosophic and practical elements. So when you compare them, compare your similar like to like within your own faith. Because if somehow we have more differences, not just within Hinduism itself, but within any of our faiths, there's huge amounts of differences. And therefore all of our faiths have both open universal elements and exclusive elements. So much so that, for example, when Swami Vivekananda was in Chicago in the Midwest, it actually took a Rabbi Grossman of Detroit to actually defend him in the papers against all the attacks from American fundamentalists. I mean, each side has got a diversity. And therefore, I'm going to open up with a more similar side, some quotes from Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, not to create false dichotomies, to open up. In the flow of the Holy Spirit, one feels the divine life force coursing the pathways of existence through all desires, all worlds, all thoughts, all nations, all creations. Another quote, when you train yourself to hear the voice of God in everything, you attain the quintessential of the human spirit. Usually the mind conceals the divine thoroughly by imagining that there is a separate mental power that constructs the mental images. But by training yourself to hear the voice of God in everything, the voice reveals itself to your mind as well. Then, right in the mind, you discover the revelations. But despite the similarities, Jewish thinkers tend to also say, don't forget the differences. Chief Rabbi of the United Kingdom, Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sacks, put out a book called The Dignity of Difference right after 9/11, that we've got to learn to work together, we've got to learn to have harmony, we've got to learn to not have extremists. But at the same time, he's writing, the radical transcendence of God in the Hebrew Bible means nothing more or less than there's a difference between God and religion. God is universal, religions are particular. Religion is the translation of God into a particular language, and thus into the life of a group, a nation, a community of faith. In the course of history, God has spoken to mankind in many languages, through Judaism to Jews, Christianity to Christians, Islam to Muslims. Only such a God is truly transcendental, God greater not only than the natural universe, but also than the spiritual universe articulated in any single faith. Any single language of human sensibility. How could a sacred text convey such an ideal? It would declare that God is God of all humanity, but no single faith is or should be the faith of all humanity. Only such a narrative would lead us to see the presence of God in people of other faiths. Only such a worldview can reconcile the particularity of cultures with the universality of the human condition. And then he goes on to explain why we should see things as different. And we have got to learn to see similarity and difference at the same time, to be able to oscillate, to go back and forth, but certainly to see the wisdom of other faiths, not to close ourselves off to it. And many thinkers say some of the best way to know the similarities is first look for the differences. I mean, that was a working principle of the sociologist Peter Berger. First look for the differences, and then you can go deal with the similarities. Learn what they're really about. In current thinking today, there's an approach called allophilia. It's actually going beyond just harmony and tolerance, but actually learning to like the other side. That unless you have some vested interest in actually liking the other side, of getting involved, of getting to know them, it doesn't actually change you as a person. Because just once again, because it may be required in middle school or college, doesn't mean it changes you if you don't actually feel a need. And now people are doing studies of how you actually have to have a comfort level with the other faith. And in order to get the comfort level, you actually have to first go out of your ordinary comfort level. You've got to go to a new place. The Jewish thinker Emmanuel Levinas stresses the term hospitality, in which you've got to be open to new perspectives, leaving one's safe precinct, out of one's comfort zone, to actually meet people, engage them, talk with them, enter the realm. In our age of globalization, that becomes ever more part of our lives. Part of my own life is forgetting India for a moment. I'm off to Indonesia this summer to actually teach in Java for the summer, encountering a very different part of the world. But understanding takes the slow task of actually learning particular texts, doctrines, liturgies, moral precepts of the other side, not just this presentation. Go home, learn, read, study about the other side. Nothing is entirely dissimilar to where you are now in either small or major details, especially if you're learning not to compare your myth to their law or your mysticism to their rationalism. Compare like to like in each faith, myth to myth, law to law, mysticism to mysticism. And in some way think of all the religions as a pantry full of spices and ingredients. We can produce a Judaism that resonates with Hindu ideas, Buddhist ideas, Christian ideas, by combining the ingredients in your own faith in certain ways, in atypical proportions, but it lets you see and get close to the other side. And I'm going to close again with another quote from the Kabbalah to give you a sense of light to light if I'm going to talk anything. God is unified oneness, one without two, inestimable, genuine divine existence, engenders the existence of all creation. The sublime inner essences secretly constitute a chain linking everything from highest to lowest, extending from the upper pool to the edges of the universe. There is nothing, not even the teeniest thing, that is not fastened to the links of the chain. Everything is part of its mystery, caught in its oneness. God is one. God's secret is one. All the worlds below and above are mysteriously one. Divine existence is indivisible. The entire chain is one, down to the last link. Everything is linked with everything else. So no divine essence is below as well as above. There is nothing else. And one more I just can't resist. Each of us emerges from the infinite and is included in it. We live through its dissemination, its perpetuation of existence. The fact that we sustain ourselves on vegetation and animal life does not mean that we are nourished on something outside of the infinite force. The process is like a revolving wheel, first ascending and then ascending. Through life, branches out further and further, but everything still remains in the infinity of the divine, included and abiding. Dwell on this. Flashes of intuition will come and go, and you'll discover the secret here. If you are deserving, you will understand the mystery of God in all things on your own.
I see some students departing. That's very understandable. Our class time is 11 to 12:15. For all of you who can stick around, please join us for some question and answer session. We especially heard Rabbi Brill's closing theme on mystery, and so mystery tends to raise questions. And then also, for many of us, we're learning about Hinduism, so I hope we have some good questions about Hinduism for Swami Sarvapriyananda. And so I guess to handle this, I don't know, you can't see each other there. Maybe I can ask the two featured speakers to come down, and then we could survey the audience for guys' questions to ask. Nick, who else has a question?
Am I audible if I stand up and speak?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I can hear you. Thank you. So, I'm interested in the question of multiple mountains versus one mountain. And both of you addressed this, and I'm curious about Rabbi Brill. You focus specifically on Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah, and Swami Sarvapriyananda, you focus on mysticism as well. I think in talking specifically about, correct me if I'm wrong, Brahman Nirguna, is that correct?
Nirguna Brahman, yes.
Nirguna Brahman, yes. So, as we think about religious dialogue and interaction, Rabbi Brill makes a good point. Compare like to like. Compare mysticism to mysticism, law to law, myth to myth. And I wonder if, as we're trying, I hope, as a country, as a nation, as a world, to move towards some kind of ecumenical dialogue, we need to find out where those likes are. And I would like to know both of your opinions on, do you think mysticism is the core of religion, the essence of religion? Is that where the potential for real dialogue comes in? Because it seems like most religious traditions have some kind of notion of Advaita, Brahman, Nirguna, God without characteristics. Put your insert your label here. So I hope that's question is clear.
Go ahead, you want first?
Okay.
I'm just the add-on.
Yes, that's a very good question. I'll take the last one first. Is mysticism the core of religion? I would, if you pressed for a straight answer, I would say yes. Do you notice how I defined religion itself? That there is an ultimate reality, the goal of human life is to realize that there itself you have mysticism. How do you realize that reality? It's by a mystical experience of that and living it. It's not just having strange experiences. So yes. The comparing like to like, I'm reminded of a senior monk who was very active in ecumenical circles, a monk of our order, who's American. And he told me something about ecumenical dialogue. He said to me, when you interact with people from other religions, listen to what they teach. They'll always have something wonderful to teach you. Don't listen to what they criticize, which is also a nice principle. But I really like that, comparing like to like. Would you?
Okay, so in that sense, I would probably differ in the fact that I think you can compare. We don't do it, but you can compare canon law to Sharia to Jewish halacha. You can do that easily. If you're doing philosophy, scholastic philosophy, you can compare the Indian Nyaya philosophy to Western scholasticism. I think it's really wide open so long as you're comparing like to like. I was just in Abu Dhabi as one of the precursor panels before the Pope Francis going to Abu Dhabi, and there the discussion was not comparing mysticism, but was comparing on one level human dignity. How do you now maintain rights for people? How do you work for equal rights for women? How do you defend children? And that was a very different sort than starting from a mystical place.
If I could just add one thing here. Let me share something which I think most Indians, especially Hindus, would feel, which is not obvious to people from other traditions. We would question the whole point of this kind of an approach. You know why? That might sound shocking. I have a friend, a rabbi, Alon Goldstein.
Yes.
Elijah Institute.
He emailed me about yesterday.
Oh, yes. So he was the first rabbi I actually met who visited our monastery in India, near Belur Math on the Ganga, near Calcutta, where Swami Vivekananda founded. And when we were walking down near the river, the Ganges, he said to me that you speak so much about the harmony of religions, but when we come close to India and to Hinduism, we don't find, where are the workshops, where are events like this? Where are the workshops? Where are the bodies of dialogue and the research papers being written? And the idea, the first time I heard about this, the trying to love or like the other, where are these things? We don't hear so much about that. And I said, you're right, because there is really no need for that in Hinduism. Because it's so deeply driven, not just into the scholars, but among the common masses of Hinduism for thousands of years down to the village level. that there are different religions or different forms of the same divine. So to tell, say, a simple Hindu villager, you have to love the God of the other. They'd be a little puzzled. I already do. What are you trying to tell me? The other is not so much an other for the Hindu. Because if it's the same reality, if it is one reality underlying everything, then obviously your Allah or your Jehovah or even the Buddhist Nirvana, even the Buddhist void, must be in some sense the God I am worshipping now. And so the Hindus have this huge appetite for everything religious. Any kind of religious teacher you'll find finds an audience in India.
I want to comment on that.
I'll just. So you find Hindus, for example, a Catholic church, and they're told that the Mass is only for Catholics. And the Hindus think there's a blessing coming up. Let me queue up, line up for the blessing. You can't do that. It's only for Catholics. But for the Hindu, it's God blessing us. So where is really the need for this? So that's a point I wanted to say. I mean, it's something very obvious for a Hindu. I mean, the Hindus present here would have really no objection to harmony of religions, to loving the other, to seeing. I have heard it so many times, Hindus going to Assisi or to Jerusalem and commenting on the spiritual atmosphere of the places. They find the same spiritual atmosphere in their own monasteries or temples too. Yeah.
Okay, so good thing you brought up Alon. I actually interviewed him I have a blog that deals with these things. So I've got an interview currently posted. You can find my name and blog on another part coming this week with Alon. But at the same time, we talk about the diversity of India. The modern universities, cities, Chennai, Delhi do have interfaith dialogues. Not in the ashram monastic culture, but certainly in the university and the political culture, there are interfaith dialogues like this one that do go on in India.
Yeah, and that's good. There's a need for that. In fact, I asked Rabbi Goshen Gottstein, so I followed up by saying that the interfaith that you are doing, he does a lot of interfaith. Let me ask you, why should I participate in it? Because I believe in all of it, and more than what you are saying. It's very natural to me. And he said exactly this, that it's helpful to participate and to be in dialogue and to share. If you do believe, if that's your point of view, why don't you come and share? So that's a very good point, yeah.
I'm sorry.
There's a hand there.
I had a comment both in support and a little pushback to what Swamiji is suggesting, because in certain ways, when we look at the present day India, and I have left that country for the last 36 years, so I am sometimes, I don't recognize what, the conversation, the current conversation on religion, on, the way things have hardlined. Yeah. Let me put it this way. I completely agree with you that for the Hindu psyche, my mother, for example, a devout Hindu, always thought that the coming of Christ was really something that Krishna had talked about in the Gita. She would say, remember, Krishna says, I'll come back. And there it is, there was need. And so, when I tell this to my students, they are, oh my God, what is this? But that culture has suffered a tremendous shakedown. And now you have what is called the hardening of this is my position. This is what, and I'll use the word Hindutva, right? My Hinduism. How do you perceive this? Is there a way in which we can step back to what it was like? Is there a way in which you see a path through this? And certainly mysticism still remains true, but what is happening currently is the whole ritualistic understanding. So cows versus cow sacrifice versus how Muslims are treating cows, and that whole conversation.
Yeah,
what is your?
I'll respond to it, and also I've asked the rabbi to respond to that because he was in Benares, so he has a different perspective on. He has seen the whole thing there. So I'll just respond to this quickly. You're right. There are changes there. But then, this question has always also been there earlier. I remember a group of journalists who visited our main monastery, American journalists, there were CNN, they were traveling in different countries in Asia, and their purpose was very interesting. They were traveling to countries which have large Muslim populations, and how the Muslims have interacted with the local populations over the centuries. So this was after 9/11. So what is the story in India? And so one of the places they visited was our monastery. And I gave them the usual talk about harmony of religions, what I talked about. So one of the questions, remember they are actually the White House group of journalists. They traveled with the president in Air Force One. So one of them asked the question, you, Swami, you spoke about harmony of religions, but in India we hear about these religious riots which are there quite often. And there is violence between Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs. So what is this harmony you're talking about? I was a little irritated at that. And my answer was, in America, that was after 9/11. After 9/11, there was a little article in Time magazine, the last essay they have at the end of the Time magazine. And it said that there is this black person who got into a cab, and there was this little old white lady sitting in the cab, and she looked at the person, they were sharing the cab. She looked at the person, and she said, oh, thank God it's you. I thought it was one of those terrible Arabs. And so I said, after one such incident, 9/11, look at the kind of reactions you have in the United States. Whereas in India, all these traditions have been there for more than 2,000 years. Buddhism, 2,500 years, Jainism, 2,500 years. And then Christianity, Judaism came, Christianity came, Islam came, Sikhism. And so we have coexisted for 2 to 3 millennia. And there have been wars, there have been problems. But now see how after all of that, we do coexist. And we do have harmony between different religions. And we do know how to live together. So that was my answer. Specifically, you asked about Hindutva. My feeling is the present situation is a kind of reactionary situation. A pushback against what is perceived with resentment as attempts to convert Hindus into other religions, violence. It's a perception, and there's a pushback. And this pushback is not authentic. It's not authentic in the sense, you cannot really justify it in the terms of the fundamental texts of Hinduism. But I'll leave it at that.
In the real world, religion actually plays itself out in political and social tensions.
Sure.
And for whatever you say the ideals of any religion are, you go to Kashmir and you find factions fighting. You go to speak to Gujarati and you find factions fighting. I go everywhere you go, and they're going to talk to you about it, but there's real politics, there's real sociology here, and it goes on all over the world. There was one day I was sitting in a restaurant waiting for my food. I mean, it was like one of these takeout places, waiting for my food to be cooked. And on with the TV on, usually it's cricket, but today it was a political speech from one of the Hindu parties. And I said, oh my God, it's just like the Middle East. You could have translated this speech into anyone on the Arab or Israeli side, identical rhetoric. And that's what real people do, unfortunately.
Swami Vivekananda said, nothing has contributed to peace and blessedness more than religion. He meant it in the general sense, all over the world. And nothing has contributed to inflaming the passions of humanity and violence more than religion. But often it's religion which has been co-opted by politics, by power politics and all. There was a lady who had raised her hand there. Yes, you have a question.
More like the deliberation that I'd love to hear your opinions on. But I think when thinking about religion today, as you were talking, Swami, I was reminded of this sociological concept of like the marketplace of ideas, right? So it fits, even your example was the cereal, like it fits into this kind of capitalist American mindset where like all choices are equal and you just have a lot of choices. But I find that while that perspective is important, we also have, especially in the U.S. today, this kind of people sort of choosing specific opinions and then like standing by them and not really willing to accept the variety of opinions as, you know, to be able to accept the variety of opinions in a way that is constructive to a need for dialogue. So I guess my question is, I know we've heard how this works on a religious mindset. How would you translate this to, you know, other aspects of people's identities, like political mindsets, or you know, any kind of a way in which people understand themselves? Does that make sense? Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. This question to me? Yeah.
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
That's very good. Now, you know, what I said might have been slightly misleading. Don't get the idea that for 5,000 years in India, people were going around with the idea that all religions are the same, and all religions are real and true, and there's peace and love. No, not at all. In fact, the different religious traditions, what is called the sampradayas or the paramparas, the lineages, they had their points of view. Within Hinduism, we had different schools of Vedanta. I'm talking about Vedanta, but there are so many schools of Vedanta. There is the Advaita, non-dualist. There's a qualified monist. There is the dualistic schools of Vedanta, and multiple varieties of dualistic schools of Vedanta, all of which are still there in India, and they are different. In fact, you have manifestations of them here in the United States. You wouldn't recognize it, but say the Hare Krishnas, ISKCON, they are actually a genuine school of Vedanta called the Achintya Bheda Veda of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, and all of these schools, they engaged in dialogue, not only within themselves, but with each other. So this is one thing I want to share with you, which is, I think, will be useful in the modern context here. So there was a tradition of dialogue, vada, debate in ancient India, where the scholars of the pandits, the scholars of different schools, holding very different points of views, different schools of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. These were parts of that ancient school and system of dialogue, debate. It was called Vada, and they had remarkable systems of dialogue. For example, I'll share a couple. One is, when I'm debating with you, after you have had your say, before I can reply to you, I have to state back your position to you to your satisfaction. This is what you said. I have to actually state it back. And you have ancient Indian political texts where the first part is actually not the position of the person who's writing it. It's the position of the opponent. So this is called the Purva Paksha method, where the opponent presents the point of view, and then there are agreed systems of debate, of logic. There was an underlying system of logic, the Nyaya, later the Navya Nyaya, the new school of logic, which provided a logical framework for debate. So this is one. You have to state back the position, and just think how useful it is. Often when we are arguing, it quickly degenerates into a quarrel, because instead of listening to the other person, I'm just getting ready with my reply. I'm going to give you a real reply and put you in your place. No, you have to listen to the other person and to the other person's satisfaction. What constitutes a decision in a debate? What constitutes a point of defeat? And so on. This is a very sophisticated form of debate. And this was there. So this is something, a similar thing, which might be useful in today's hyper-connected world. How strange that we live in a world which is hyper-connected, and yet in our own echo chambers, because the internet reflects back to us our own points of view. Because it watches what you like, and then reflects back to you what you like. So you are not connected with the other person's point of view at all. So this way of debate would be one thing I would suggest, if we could introduce it in schools, colleges, political spheres of communication.
So, 4 small points. The idea of comparing in general is whenever you have a cosmopolitan situation. So, for example, in 10th century Baghdad, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists that also would actually have debates and leave records of it whenever you have that. The second part is it's not open like serials. It's actually, at this point, I become the professor and say it's usually a limit based on functionality. There's a built-in functionalism, like America's taking in very, very easily mindfulness but not taking almost anything else. There's a narrow range of what takes in. There's the political element in terms of you're triangulating somebody else out. So you have a phrase now that's playing a role that it never played, Judeo-Christian in America, to triangulate out Muslims. And now I'm off to Indonesia, where I'm already being contacted by Judeo-philes, Muslim Judeo-philes, to triangulate out Christianity that turned to Judaism. There's a political element of what plays the role, so it's not that it's all completely open. And finally, I'm glad that Swami mentioned ISKCON, the Hare Krishnas, because they tend to be conversionary and tend to be much more exclusive, and they tend to be much more, no, it's not multiple paths, but there's only one path of Krishna, and we have a very different presentation from that perspective.
Correct. Yes, this hand here.
Speaking of rural India, where most of the people reside, we have a very embedded caste system. What is the Vedanta view of the caste system, the practice of the caste system in India?
Okay, there's a question about the caste system. For those of you who are not familiar with India, for an Indian, the problems in American society seem a little strange at first. So racism, for example, based on color, that seems a little strange. Anti-Semitism seems a little strange to Indians. What exactly are they fighting about? They all look the same to us. But a similar problem, if you would look for an Indian society, what would be an equivalent problem? Would be the problem of caste, for example. So originally the society was divided into 4 castes: the priestly caste, the Brahmins, the administrative warrior class, the Kshatriyas, the commercial class, the Vaishyas, and the laborers, the Shudras. And they were outcasts who were outside the pale of the caste system. And each of these was further subdivided into an enormously complex societal system. So you basically kept to your own caste, married within your own caste, and from a distance, Indian society looks very complex like modern American society, but there's a big difference. A writer said recently that Indian society was more like a mosaic, where you have different tiles, but each tile is different from the other. It's homogeneous within itself and demarcated from the other. It's not really a melting pot like America at least is supposed to be. So, yeah, and the caste system became a system of exploitation, power, of elitism. So with a few people at the top who had all the privileges and power and education and wealth, and lording it over millions of people of the other lower castes. And religious reformers have always struggled with this. You'll find one thing that religious reformers throughout the ages in Hinduism have done, and Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. One common thing was pushback against the caste system, which has proved to be pretty resilient. What is Vedantic perspective? If you look at the core Vedantic idea, if it's one reality, all of us are one existence, consciousness, bliss. So therefore, caste cannot be ultimately real. And it is not, from the point of view of whether it is jnana, knowledge, or bhakti, or devotion. The teachers of devotion would say, from God's point of view, the castes it's not important. Whoever has devotion, that is important to God. From the knowledge point of view, you realize you are one reality far beyond any caste. Even some Shankaracharya says, na jati, not caste, your existence, consciousness, bliss. Chidananda, Rupa, Shiva. So yes, that's the point. And religious reformers have been struggling against this very strongly, someone like Vivekananda, for example. And modern India, it's illegal to practice caste. So from the point of view of government jobs or in public life, there should be no discrimination on the basis of caste. I would say the last word here would be, the teachers, including Vivekananda, have said that caste is a social construct, came up because of some social necessity in the past, and as it's a corrupt system now, and when it becomes no longer necessary, it will drop off by its own accord. So, interestingly, Vivekananda and I also would not identify Vedanta with caste. I mean, I am perfectly all right with, and in fact, I would have Vedanta without caste. So I a Hindu who has no interest at all in caste. Yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Our theme today is harmony of religions, and for a harmony, you need at least two notes going, right? You need two frequencies vibrating. And so comparing like to like was Rabbi Brill's theme that I really appreciated. And so comparing visions of God across traditions. And so you used a pond metaphor and everyone coming to the same pond. And so the water might seem uniform, not a harmony, it's just all water. And then in the Catholic tradition, the vision of God is Trinitarian, that it is relational. Could you talk a little bit about those differing visions of God, or are they different?
True, we'll both respond to that. So in Hinduism, there is this wide range of conceptions of the ultimate reality. So from the non-dualistic perspective, the goal would be to realize your identity with the ultimate reality. The ultimate reality is called Brahman, and that reality alone manifests as this diverse world, including us. And the real point of life is to discover that reality and know that I am Brahman. That would constitute enlightenment. But there are devotional schools of Hinduism, the Hare Krishnas, ISKCON for example, who don't agree with that at all. They would say that God is ultimately personal. So there's a personal God, and the relationship between the personal God and the individual soul is an identity in difference. In Sanskrit, achintya vedave. There are other schools of Hinduism, as I said, enormously diverse, who say that no identity, just difference. So God is the Lord of the universe, the Madhva school, the dualistic school of Hinduism. God is the Lord of the universe and eternally different from the individual being. And so our relationship with that God would be one of a master and servant, or father or mother and child, father and child, like that. There are 5 possible relational attitudes in Hinduism. One is the master and servant, dasya. The other one is vatsalya. God is my child. So something like you would closest would be Mother Mary to the baby Jesus. So Yashoda to Krishna, or the child Rama. Exactly the same attitude. God is my child. It's called vatsalya. The other one is sakha. God is my friend. So in the Gita, Arjuna regards Krishna as a friend. God is my friend. There is another one which is regarded as the highest of all relational attitudes, the one of beloved. The God is like lovers. So it's called madhurya bhava. So like Krishna and the gopis, Krishna and Radha. And there's a 5th one which is more like the philosophical attitude. It's called the peaceful attitude, shanta. So all relational attitudes are possible, and an identity is possible, and all kinds of mystical experiences. Sri Ramakrishna was a veritable cornucopia of mystical experiences. So relational, identity, peaceful, love. His fundamental attitude was God is my mother. So the Kali, the divine mother as Kali, is God, and I am the child of God. That was the relationship. And does that answer?
That helps.
So, for example, a relationship between the Christian and Christ. That would be a wonderful relation for a Hindu to explore. In fact, one of my favorite books is The Imitation of Christ. So that was one of Vivekananda's favorite books too. And a Hindu easily relates with that. You don't even have to replace Christ with Krishna. You can just take Christ as Christ also. Yeah.
I don't know if I have much to add, but knowing that a lot of the metaphors that came up before are ones of mountain, different paths to the mountain. The drop in the pool or drop in the ocean is already an obliterating one, rather than being able to respect the divine within you. It is a different. There are texts that will talk about the musical instrument, either 2 strings in harmony, or are we talking the harmony of different instruments within one symphony? You have texts on both sides. And not in the Jewish side, but on the Catholic side right now is really struggling for the sense of what's the commonality, Holy Spirit, or wisdom, or covenant. And so there's lots of metaphors out there.
I would recommend a book by a brilliant young scholar of our order, Ayan Maharaj. The name of the book is Infinite Paths to Infinite Reality. It's a translation of one of Sri Ramakrishna's sayings. Anantapat, Anantamat. Anantapat means infinite paths. Anantamat means infinite modes of approaching God. So infinite paths to infinite reality. Where it's a very serious academic work. It's published by Oxford University Press. And this monk was here recently. He gave a talk in Princeton. If you look it up, he talks about what is the very academic approach to the harmony of religions. Yes.
Do we have any?
I was wondering if there's a discussion of what's the purpose of life in Judaism.
Yes, but it's not something we're going to do on one foot. If you ask me, okay, I'll give you things to look at, but it's not a 1 foot sort of answer.
I remember Rabbi Alon telling me that just as you would not, if you just read the Old Testament and say, now I know Judaism. No, you don't, actually.
Yeah.
There are so many texts to read.
That's right.
Like that, if you just go to the Vedas, you'd form an idea of Hinduism, which is something most modern Hindus wouldn't recognize.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. So.
Okay, we're coming up on our last 15 minutes, so I'm going to move us into the final gratitude phase. Please stay here.
Okay.
If you have your program, please look at the back page, and we'll start at the bottom. The Institute for Communication and Religion is still in its infancy or toddler years. We're in our second year, and it takes a lot of work. Trust me, to do just an event like this, let alone 2 events in my launch year and master class just last semester, as Dean Yates mentioned. So we really have to thank the entire steering committee. We've got 10 people working hard. So Professor Kathy Zizik, Dean Yates, Ruth Surya, Diane Traflett, Gloria Thurmond, myself, Inez Mazaku, Mark Maven, Ryan Hughes, and Kiju Choi. Could we please clap for the committee? Then as we head up to the middle of the page, we get our co-sponsors. So you've been enjoying the water and also the granola bars, and we have the Department of Religion to thank for that. So please thank the Department of Religion. There's still a bunch of water and granola out there, so please take some on your way out as you leave. And then as we get toward the top, we get into people who are more specifically related to this event. So Aruna had to go. She asked a question earlier. But Aruna was instrumental in getting the musical portion of this program started. And so we owe a great deal of thanks. Maria Roman is a secretary within the College of Communication and the Arts. She did many of the logistical things, such as ordering the projector and the PA system and the video system. Sean Quinn at the back is our graduate assistant who was assigned to the Institute. Sean did many things, including hanging signs today and logistical efforts, especially for the public relations side of things. So if you saw our nice announcement for the event, that's Sean's excellent work. And please look forward to news releases in the future from Sean. Our next 2 people, Christine Lowe and Christine Cruz, are our graphic design faculty. And so they were supervising, somebody I'll get to in a minute, but it's wonderful to have expertise to get things going, like a program and a PowerPoint and a logo with a transparent background, all the little things in the back that make an event come together. Next we have Nalin Jori, Nalin's right over here, and he took care of all the transportation for the Swami. So I'm sure you all, or most of you have driven to New York City before. It's not super easy, and so he's somebody who's donated his time and effort to make sure the Swami arrives safely, and we'll get back. And then next we have somebody who's worked really, really hard. We have our photographer today, Claire Evans. So in addition to photography, Claire also helped organize the program. She was taking direction from Professor Cruz and Professor Lowe to work on the logo, and then she also designed our wonderful poster on the front. And especially, you know, like I was expecting to have to go back and forth, but no, the instant she showed me this design, I loved it. It's got, it's like a Venn diagram. It's got the overlapping circles, and the circles themselves aren't uniform. They're fairly diverse circles. They're in the same range of the color spectrum, so for me, it's a really kind of great visual way of getting the harmony theme across. And so thank you so much, Claire. And then as we head toward the top, Pradeep Bose is the secretary at the New York Vedanta Society. He was great in organizing the paperwork. Just last night we got the video release signed, and so Pradeep is on top of things. And at the very top, Dean Yates at the beginning announced that this institute is funded by the Thrust Initiative out of the Provost Office. So Interim Provost Borov is the final person to sign off on all of this, and we really have her to thank as well. Can we please clap for everybody on the back page? And I kept our guests up here because we have symbolic gifts. So this one is for the Swami, and this one is for Rabbi Brill. So please clap for our guest speakers. Thank you all for coming to this wonderful event. They have cards, I have cards, and I can put you in touch with them afterwards. Have a great day. Want some water?